In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how we can do macro eye photography, but with the absolute bare minimum equipment. So I'm going to be using the Canon R6, but honestly, you can use whatever camera you like. As long as you can take off the lens and pop on a new one, you're fine. Of course, that lens will need to be a macro lens, which I'm using the 100mm f2.8. This was about £480 secondhand, but as you can see from the screen, you can get much cheaper than that. Now, in terms of lighting, I'm using a very, very cheap continuous key light that you can probably get from eBay for about 20 or 30 pounds. And we will be taking off the diffusing sheet just so we can let in more light onto the subject's eye. Now that we've got our subject, it's very important that their head is rested against something. As you can see here, when they don't have the head rested, there's a lot of movement with the eyes. When we do have them rested, there's next to no movement whatsoever, which will make it a lot easier to take the image. So for the shutter speed, you want to work with at least 1/100th of a second. Anything lower than that, and you're probably going to start introducing some motion blur, and we need this as sharp as possible. For the aperture, try and close that down as much as you can. Of course, the more we close the aperture, the more we get in focus. When we're working with macro photography and with that close to the eye, the more we can get in focus, the better. After that, you just need to bump up your ISO until you get a properly exposed image. Don't worry about how the subject's face looks. If it looks overexposed, we're just trying to see as much detail in the eye as possible. And once we've got our settings dialed down, we're then good to go ahead and take the image. And there we have it, we've taken our photo, but you're probably gonna wanna take multiple photos just to be on the safe side, knowing that you've got at least one tag sharp image. So as you can see, I've got both the RAW files opened up in Photoshop here. There's RAW file number 1, that's my eye, and then RAW file number 2. All you want to do is some slight editing to make sure that there's plenty of brightness in the eye, plenty of contrast, saturation, and of course turn up the sharpness quite a bit. I've done it to 80. Your settings might look the same as this, they might look a little bit different. Just make sure it's nice and bright. So now that we've got them open, the first thing you want to do is unlock your layer and do Ctrl-J to make a duplication. Come over to your paintbrush tool and make sure that you've got a hard brush on and color it all in black, because this is what we're going to use as our canvas. You can even rename it canvas, and just make sure that your canvas layer is on the bottom here. So with this iris, what we need to do is some cleaning up. As you can see here, we've got a bit of a pink thing going on and a huge reflection. For this little pink thing, I'm just going to come over to the patch tool and I'm going to draw around it. Move that off to the left, and just like that, that is gone. For the light reflection, I'm going to come over to the rectangular marquee tool, and as best as I can, just kind of draw an outline around it. And then you'll notice that this box will pop up. If you click on generative fill and just type in remove this, then AI will basically do the work for you. And just like that, it's gone. But it does give you another 2 options if you don't like the first thing it's generated. So we've got option 1, option 2, and option 3, some artifact going in there. So honestly, I think I'm a fan of just option number 1. I think that's worked really well. The only other difference I want to make now is to the actual pupil. You'll notice that this extremely dark part is actually the reflection of my lens, and the rest of the dark part is the reflection of the background. So I'm going to come over to the clone stamp tool, making sure that I'm on the actual eye layer here and not the AI layer. Alt click, and then I'm just going to paint in the rest of the pupil to make it all pitch black, so it's consistent. Just like that, that is done. And make sure at the end that we bring these layers together by doing Ctrl-E, so that in the end, all you have is your canvas and the picture of the eye. So just for safety, we're going to come up to filter, sharpen, and sharpen. That will just give the image one final boost of sharpness, which is when we'll then come over to the elliptical marquee tool, and as best as you can, just draw out a nice circle and then just shape that around the iris like so. Then do Ctrl-Shift-I, which will invert that, and then select and mask. So over here, you want to make sure that your feather is in the region of about 10 pixels. I find that that works the best, and then click OK. And then just press delete on your keyboard, and we've got our cutout of our eyeball here on our canvas. So this is when things get quite interesting. What we want to do now is Ctrl-J again to make another duplication of just the iris. We're going to hide the top layer, and with the original layer, we want to come over to filter and liquify. Now, make sure that your pressure is on 100 and that your density is also on 100. And where you want the particles to be coming from, all we're going to do is click and drag our iris. So in the end, you might have an image that looks somewhat like this. So you're all good to just click OK here, and we've got this here. So what you want to do now is hold down Alt on your keyboard and then click Layer Mask on the layer that we've just done, and that should disappear. You're then good to bring back the visibility of the top layer. Now, without holding Alt, you want to create a layer mask on this layer as well. You'll know you've done this right because your liquefied layer will have a black square next to it and your top layer will have a white square next to it. So the next thing we want to do now is come over to our brush tools. Now, the Photoshop brush tools probably work okay, but I've left a link in the description below to the brush tools that I'm going to be using. Honestly, I would highly recommend using them because it's going to make this image look a hell of a lot better if you do. Selecting the brush tool, I'm going to type in explosion, and we've got all of our explosion brushes that will look like this. So the layer that we're going to be working on is the top layer with the white layer mask. And it's very important as well that your paint is selected as black. And all we're going to do here is we're going to start chipping away at the eyeball. So this is basically where the point of impact is going to be. Now, once you're done, you should end up with something like this, something that you're happy with. And then we're going to click onto the black layer mask and we're going to switch our color over to white. Now, this is where we're basically going to start painting back in where we've liquefied. Now, the best bit of advice I can give here for this is use every single paintbrush. Click it a few times, change the paintbrush, click it a few times, change the direction of the paintbrush. You want to make this look scattered. In an explosion with debris going everywhere, there is no consistency. We want this to look random. Okay, so I've played about with this for about 5 minutes now, again, using all different types of brushes, changing the angles, changing the sizes, and I've come up with something random that looks like this. Now, what you want to do is do the exact same thing again, everything that we've just done, but on the other image that you have. All right, again, so after about 10 minutes of fiddling around, this is what I've come up with. So now it's time to merge the two eyeballs together. So what we're gonna do is come over to any one of the layers and again, just do Control E to make sure that you've only got one layer for the eyeball altogether. Because what we're gonna do is drag this entire layer over to this account here. We're going to make sure that this layer remains on top by itself. Now, at the moment, you can see that there's a bit of a size difference between the two eyeballs. So all I'm going to do with this particular layer here is just Control T and make this a bit bigger so that we've got something that's a bit more similar, and click OK. And now it's just time to compose our image. So what we want to do here is maybe bring this down a bit and bring this eyeball in together here. So we've got a point of contact. And I think I'm going to move all the layers slightly over to the left just for better composition. And another thing that I want to do as well is I don't really want any particles dipping into my pupil here. So I'm just going to grab this layer, use the eraser tool, make that a little bit smaller, and just rub that out here because I want to keep that black very black. And there you have it. Is it perfect? Maybe not. I really like it, but honestly, it's just something to play about with. You might do this once and think, you know what, I could do better. Just have another go and maybe repainting it, recomposing the shot until you've got something that you're happy with. But otherwise, if you found this tutorial helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel so that you can see other tutorials and challenges that I've got on the channel. And you can check those out here. But in the meantime, I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you very much.